Rooted in rising family. Take a deep breath. Let your spirit settle and soften into this message. As we begin, you'll be able to see the cards on the screen. Yes, you hear Marco's collar dangling around. During this introductory portion, just take a moment to connect with them, feel into them, and let your intuition meet them before we move forward together. Rooted in Rising family, this is a collective message. The unspoken truth, inspired by the Oracle deck, one of the Oracle decks we'll use today, the Unspoken Truth Oracle deck. So this is your divine counterpart, where the feminine or masculine, this is their unspoken truth to you, Rooted in Rising family. This is the truth that they have not spoken to you, okay? Again, it's always take what resonates, leave what does not. Everything is not for everybody, right? So when I speak of masculine and feminine, I am speaking of energies, not gender. Today's decks are starting with the Tarot, and that's the one on the bottom, the Wildwood Tarot deck. This is a beautiful deck. It is so beautiful. It's beautiful even captured here on screen, but oh, it is so beautiful in person and so vibrant and lively. All right. With this deck, we have the vessels that will represent our cups, which is our emotions, love, connection, right? Love, connection, emotions represents water energy, so things like that. Our bows will represent the wands, which is our passion, movement, desire, creativity. You know what brings a fire in us? That being said, wands represents fire, the fire element. Stones will represent the pentacles, stability, grounding, and the physical, tangible, also creativity. And I take that back from our wands. Also creativity, and a great representation of finances, because usually when your finances are in order, it brings what? Stability, right? And that's our earth energy. Arrows represent swords, our thoughts, truth, discernment, right? Communication, all right? Being clear, the mental, which is which is the mind, thoughts, right? And if I didn't say it again, that's our air energy, all right? Cuts through the things. We are also using oracle decks, the Unspoken Truth, which is the inspiration for our topic today, right? And the Kipper oracle deck, Kipper. Those are the ones that looks similar to the Barbie cards, all right? That's our Kipper oracle deck. Also, I want you to know about this particular tarot deck. Although the meanings coincides with the traditional tarot, they have their own separate meanings. So it's like the traditional tarot, vessels represents cups. Well, we can take something like the Three of Cups, and we know that's like our merriment, right? Joy, kind of coming together, fellowship. And they will have their own meaning, which is very separate from the typical Three of Cups. Just an example, right? I have found that their representation, it kind of magnifies the traditional tarot deck. So it coincides with the meaning. It's separate, but it comes together. And it like magnifies what that meaning is traditionally. So just be prepared for that. Okay? So let's make it clear. Our topic is the unspoken truth of our divine counterpart, right? Primarily, what I'm getting is the masculine energy. Very moon-like energy is disclosed, it's hidden, it's not out in the open. Everybody, whatever it is that you practice, and that's fine. But, in the hoodoo traditionally, the moon is represented by the masculine energy for that reason, because men tend to hide their feelings, all right? You put yourself in whatever energy you resonate with, so I'm not putting that on anybody. But, the masculine is usually more hidden, not forthcoming with their feelings. So hoodoo traditionally will associate the moon with a man and the sun with a woman, because the sun is vibrant, open, joy. Most women are very open about their feelings, right? Honestly, most women are allowed to be more open with what they feel anyway. So, and of course, in Western society, traditionally the sun is male, the moon is female. But I'm just letting you know, it kind of coincides, pretty moon energy. So this is primarily masculine energy. That doesn't mean that it is always the masculine energy toward the divine feminine. That's just the energy that the cards were giving out. That's just the energy I was picking up from, my spiritual team, that this is more of a masculine energy towards a female. So their unspoken truth towards a feminine energy. Again, put yourself wherever you fit. All right. Okay, so this is what they have felt, what they have realized, and what they have not said, most importantly. And there is a very strong thread of recognition, regret, healing, and a desire for something more stable and real. All right, well, let's get into the cards. All right. So, Spirit starts this message off with the Six of Stones, okay? Exploitation. Again, for this deck, they will put the card, what it is, Six of Stones, which is closely represented in the traditional tarot by the Six of Pentacles. It was a Six of Stones, and then next to it, exploitation. It'll give the card name and the card meaning according to that deck alongside of the card, as you saw in the introductory portion. It really is a beautiful deck for those who just, who are into this and want to explore decks. This one is a wonderful one, and it will teach and show you a lot, okay? So we start off with the Six of Stones, exploitation. And the Six of Stones traditionally speaks to giving and receiving, equal give and take, right, from the traditional deck. Balance or imbalance in effort and energy, all right? But in this particular deck, with exploitation, it goes deeper, all right? It goes deeper than that. It shows what happens when something is taken for granted, right? Overused or not valued properly, right? Something or someone, right? And Spirit is bringing forward a very honest truth here. This person, right? This person absolutely knows now that they did not show up in a balanced way, okay? And this is not saying that they didn't have the desire to, but they did not. For whatever reason or circumstance or situation, they did not show up in a balanced way, all right? All right, so there was an uneven exchange, a taking without fully giving. How about a leaning on your energy, your care, your stability without pouring back into you the same way, all right? And even if this was a connection previously that never fully came together or never was fully realized in a way, your presence alone, all right, you give off energy, all right? And in your presence alone, you know what I mean? Someone else or other people can lean on your energy. That's why sometimes you go home and you haven't really done much, but you're like, oh, I'm tired. Well, you've got a lot of people leaning on your energy, all right? If there's something about you, my dog, if there's something about you that brings comfort to people or an environment or stability, rooted in rising, you are a energy changer. You enter into the room, you are noticeable. You enter into the room and the energy shifts. If you are a person like that, you got a lot of people who are kind of leaning on your energy because there's something about it that pulls people in, right? So if you were ever just around this person, they could definitely lean on that comfort, right? Lean on your presence and having you there without pouring back into you the same way that you are giving, even if it's just your energy or your presence, right? So it doesn't mean that it was, intentional, like, I'm gonna siphon this person's energy. It doesn't mean that, but it was real, okay? So I don't want you to think, rooted in rising, that your divine counterpart, may have not been giving or taking equally on purpose. Sometimes it's situations, circumstances, unsure of feelings, lack of readiness, lots of different things. So none of this is malicious. So don't take it that way, okay? It's like, getting in an accident. You didn't get, it's an accident for a reason. That's what it's labeled. It wasn't on purpose, but it happened, okay? Nobody, for the most part, we don't purposely try to get in an accident. It happened, all right? So anyway, but again, it wasn't intentional, but real, okay? There's a realization here, though. There is a realization that what they had with you, even if it was just being in your presence, was something sustaining, something grounded, and ultimately something mishandled, right? Something mishandled. So they realized what they had with you, whether it came into the fullness, it likely didn't at this point, came into the fullness of togetherness. Togetherness is now unfolding. You're past all of this and you've come together, or it has yet to be realized. It doesn't matter. They still are either had it or in the realization now, which is what I'm feeling. In the realization, that what they have at you again was sustaining, was something grounding, and they mishandled it, okay? They may not have seen you for who you truly are before, put it that way. All right. And so we tie in one of the cards from the Unspoken Truth Oracle deck. If I had cherished you more, would we have made it? Okay. So this is not a hypothetical question to them. All right. It's something that they sit with. They actually sit with, if I had been different, if the situation were different, if the circumstances were different, if I had jumped on the opportunity when it was there, if I had said no to something else, yes to this, if, whatever, they think about that. All right. So it's not a hypothetical question to them. It really is something that they sit with, right? They think about what it would have looked like if they would have showed up differently. Again, this isn't malicious. This isn't necessarily on purpose situation. Circumstances may not have allowed it, or they were in what's called Eight of Swords energy, a mind trap, where they didn't feel like there was a way out. There was a way out, but mentally they did not feel it, all right? And went with what was either expected or comfortable, all right? Or convenient. So anyway, this may feel like them recognizing that they didn't give equally in the connection, maybe pulled on your energy, felt comfortable in your presence, but in the same time, didn't reciprocate the same energy or same kindness towards you. Realizing your value after the fact, not realizing who was sitting in front of them while they were sitting in front of them. So after the fact, they realize, especially when your energy is gone, if they are in a situation where they're no longer around your energy or have access to your energy, realizing the value in just your presence, or just realizing after the fact the fullness of who you were, that I had an empress in front of me, that I had an emperor in front of me, and I did not really realize it until I don't. All right, regret around how they handled something that could have been stable. All right, maybe basic acts of kindness, basic acts of showing up. Didn't mean a declaration of love, but just something simple, giving the same energy that you're giving. All right, if it's just your presence is warm, is open, then exuding the same presence to you, warm and open. All right, maybe they exuded something cold, something distant. Maybe you are rooted and rising. Maybe you were just a lot to handle. Just your presence alone, brings a lot. So they did not know how to handle just your presence. So they may have reacted pretty coldly or standoffish or immature, something like that. Okay. So again, unspoken truth here if I had cherished you more, would we have made it something they really do think about? All the different ways they mishandled you, didn't realize who you really were, didn't see the Empress or Emperor sitting in front of them, maybe pulled on your energy, kindness, warmness, but didn't reciprocate it. Maybe they only gave coldness, immaturity, distance, whatever, not necessarily malicious, either immature, not knowing how to handle it, or circumstantial, but ultimately still mishandling you, right? So they think about that, all right? We move on to the 7 of Stones, all right? Because first, we had the 6 of Stones. I like how it moved and progressed to the 7. 6 of Stones, exploitation. You know, pulling and using your energy, not reciprocating. All right, 7 of Stones is healing. 7 of Stones on the card, that's the card, and healing is what it stands for. Traditionally, again, the 7 of Stones, or which is the 7 of Pentacles, is about patience, investment, and waiting to see what grows, all right? But here, the investment is healing. It's beautiful. So Spirit is saying, this person has had to sit with themselves, right? They've had to sit with themselves. They've had to reflect, to rest, to process, all right? Not just necessarily what happened between you two, but what they carry within themselves, all right? Because healing starts from within. I like, you know, you sound like those cliches, but it's the absolute truth. Healing has to start from you, all right? So this is them reflecting, all right? Reflecting to rest, to process, not just what happened between you two, but, you know, what they carry within themselves. So there's an emotional healing here. It's beautiful. This is an absolute beautiful card, right? There's an emotional healing that's going on here, or happening here. All right. Quiet healing, the kind that doesn't get announced. All right. And it's tied to understanding what they contributed to the situation. Okay. What they contributed. All right. Don't you love when you can see the flaws in you? That's where true change begins with you. That's why it starts from within, guys, but it does. All right. It takes incredible strength to confront yourself. All right. The biggest fight you'll ever have is with you and confronting you. All right. So we tie in from the Unspoken Truth Oracle is, I won't lie. This is their unspoken truth. I won't lie. All right. This is they're in their healing, their reflection, their processing. I won't lie. I still check up on you sometimes, right? And this isn't just curiosity, it's attachment mixed with reflection. Again, the first card, exploitation, you know, the realization of, you know, the Empress or Emperor they had in front of them. They may have you know, the give and take was unequal. Maybe they're no longer around you and they realize what they had. You know, the song, don't know what you've got till it's gone. You don't really know. And they feel it now that you're not around. All right, and they're in healing and reflection mode, and they go, I won't lie, still check up on you sometimes. All right, it's not just curiosity, it's attachment. You know, they realize, wow, like I really, really did like that one right there, right? So it's that mix also with reflection of, you know, their selves. All right, they look at you, rooted and rising, your life, your energy, and it becomes part of their healing process. So a part of their connection with you has brought about their healing, which is, it's beautiful. That's how you want them anyway, right? It reminds them of what they lost and what they didn't fully nurture, all right? So what this could feel or look like is them doing their inner work, the shadow work, you know, even if it's not visible, all right? Reflecting on the connection and their role in it, quietly watching or checking in from a distance. So maybe this is a coworker or somebody you have a connection with, you know, that you would see somewhere around social media, you know, somewhere where they can just quietly watch for it from a distance, all right? But again, this has pushed them to do the inner work, all right? Whatever choices they made in the exploitation phase, has pushed them into healing to do the inner work, which honestly, honestly, that's where you want them, all right? You want them to heal before they come to you anyway. Then we move on to the Queen of Stones, bear, all right? And not like bear, as in bearing a heavy load, or, bear, without unclothed. A bear, and actually bear, like mama bear, all right? So Queen of Stones, bear. The Queen of Stones is nurturing, grounded, stable, protective, right? And that is real, true Queen of Pentacles energy. But the bear takes it even deeper to me. That's like Queen of Pentacles on steroids. Mama bear, she's not playing about those cubs. She is not playing about that home, right? Mama bear is nurturing those babies. She is protecting those babies, and she's nurturing her own. That is something that you you will never want to cross, is a mama bear, right? We all know that though. But what is wonderful about mama bear is she's all about the one she loves in her home and nurturing and protecting it, right? She is stability on steroids, the bear. She is stable and grounded in her emotions. She doesn't just attack out of nowhere. She attacks because there's somebody in the vicinity of those babies or her home that has no business being there. So she's not a wand energy, fire, gonna move off of nothing. She's grounded. She moves with intention, and only when she needs to and recognizes there's a threat to her home, right? So anyway, this is not just nurturing. This is sacred, instinctual care, right? Protection, loyalty, a kind of love that's steady and real, rooted and rising. And Spirit is saying that this is how they see you. This is how your divine masculine, divine feminine sees you now, all right? The whole don't know what you got till it's gone. This is how they see you now. Again, I had Queen of Pentacles sitting right here. I had the mama bear sitting right here, did not really realize it. Or maybe they did, just didn't know what to do with it, acted immaturely, or just acted out of fear, okay? You got other stuff going on, and this is what they expect, so this is what I will do, and I don't know what to do with what I feel over here. All right, so that's why it went into exploitation, but wonderful that it moved into healing. All right, but again, this is how they see you, rooted and rising. Queen of Stones or bear. All right, again, this is how they see you now, not just as someone they were connected to or have a connection with or to, or have deep feelings for, but as someone who embodies the kind of partner that they actually need. All right, someone stable, someone emotionally and physically grounded, right? Someone who nurtures but also protects her own energy, right? And with the Kipper Oracle, wealthy man, ambition, opportunities, calculated risks, there's a realization here within them. Once again, I love these realizations within them because it shows they're a person that they can heal and they can grow because they can realize their own mistakes and work on them. All right. So there's a realization here within them that they need to become that same level of stability. All right. So if this is Queen of Pentacle energy, they know they need to be King of Pentacle energy, which speaks just about of the same nurturing, the same creativity, the same protection, the same financial stability, the same, the same emotional stability, again, because they're also nurturing, as in they can nurture and protect the Queen of Pentacles along with anyone else in the home. All right, they just need to be on the same level, whatever that looks like. Okay, this is not just about how they see you maturity wise, mostly maturity, right? This is not just about, again, maturity is not speaking of age. So we're not talking about because someone's in their 20s they're immature. We're not talking about because someone's in their 60s that they're not immature, right? So maturity is not speaking of age, all right? It's speaking of what it's saying, maturity, all right? I know that we all know plenty of grown people who act like toddlers, all right? They've never done the work within themselves. They still throw a tantrum when things don't go their way. They're not emotionally stable. They don't know how to how to operate soundly with their emotions. They don't know what to do with them, all right? All right, so mostly we're talking about maturity here, okay? And it's not talking about age. Lots of young people, especially nowadays, lots of younger people, more mature. The old saying that you will hear, and I don't know, I can only speak to, Black culture. You'll see when the younger ones are very wise beyond their years. What does people say? People who look like me already know that baby has been here before, right? That baby's been here before is what you'll say. What you'll hear them say about the younger ones who it's like they have this knowing of what to do. They come out the womb mature, stable, grounded, and you're like, that child has been here before. Like, this child is not new. That is not a new soul. That child has been here before. You have seen a lot of younger people come out with that energy, already mature. And then you've got a lot of grown people who need to learn from the younger ones. Okay, I had to get off on one. I had to go off on a tangent one time. All right, one time hearing this, and I'll move along. Okay, all right. Mostly maturity is where they realize that they have to meet you at. All right, not stability in all the other areas that the bear or Queen of Stones is. The King of Stones also is, but mostly maturity. All right, and it's not speaking of age. All right. Okay. All right. So again, this can look like them recognizing your value as stable, because again, this is the realization of how they see you as Queen of Stones, bear. Again, recognizing your value as a stable, nurturing partner, seeing you as someone they could build a real life with, right? Wanting to step into a more grounded, mature version of themselves. You're right. Wanting to be the King of Pentacles to your Queen of Pentacles. Again, put yourself wherever you see fit, okay? So we'll move on to this particular oracle card from the Kipper deck. False person, mystery, deceit, hidden agendas, all right? And this comes in as truth layered into everything. They are aware that at some point, again, they were not fully honest. This is kind of tying into the initial card of Six of Stones, the exploitation, okay? But so this is comes in as a truth layered into everything, that they are aware that at some point, excuse me, they were not fully honest, all right? Not fully transparent, not fully showing who they truly were. They may have been wearing masks, half truth, again, tying into the first card. They went with a situation, circumstance based on what was expected of them, what was convenient, what they may not have known how to get out of, or because what looks good on paper, all right? This is what I'm supposed to do. This looks good on paper. And this choice, quite frankly, might cause an uproar in my social circles, okay? Hence the exploitation of you, pulling on your energy, maybe not acting the best towards you in immaturity. Okay, that's where this card kind of ties in. So they're aware at some point they were not truly honest, not fully transparent, not fully showing who they truly were. And honestly, rooted in rising, you were always transparent. You were always showing who you were truly were, and acting in maturity. So there was nothing about you that was immature. There was always understanding on your half, and always appropriateness. Because you're a Queen of Pentacles, Mama Bear energy. She mirrors somewhat of the Empress. She's not chasing. She's not going to chase anybody. So you weren't out here, putting it all out there, right? You wasn't out there like saying, hey, here I am. You was going with the flow, minding your business. Okay, put it that way. You was minding your business, rooting and rising, minding your business. A lot of people got a problem with you minding your business, rooting and rising. They really, honestly do. You really disrupt the atmosphere with your presence. You don't have to say anything. Just enter into the room. The whole energy is focused on what you're doing. And usually you're minding your business. All right. You were not there to disrupt anybody, any situations. You were there to do what you needed to do. And you were there to go home. That's usually your energy. Okay. So it's not like you were acting inappropriately. It's not like you were out here being something else either. You weren't acting silly. You was acting in Queen of Pentacles energy. You were being yourself and grounded and mature. All right. In whatever area that was or atmosphere, So anyway, so that's touching on the first card. They are aware that parts of them weren't fully honest or just fully themselves. It's not necessarily they were lying to you. And again, none of this is intentionally going out of their way to be harmful or deceitful. They're not that kind of a person. Okay, none of this is that. Most of this seems like behaviors tied to situations or circumstances, or just again immaturity or not knowing how to handle the depth of you, because you're a lot to handle, even just being you. All right, a lot to handle. Again, you're an atmosphere changer, so it's like, woo, there's something about that one. And just being there, you point out everybody's insecurities by just sitting somewhere. So it's a lot to do with you, and it's not on purpose. It's not a negative thing necessarily. A lot of people might have might have some troubles coming around you, being around you, because you will naturally pull out those insecurities in other people. You make them see the things they don't necessarily want to deal with on their own. So it's hard to be around you and know how to act towards you, or is other people who are on their same level, they don't have a problem confronting and talking and socializing because they know how to. It's not that you're doing something, over the top or weird. You just mind your own business, but it's what's internally in you, innately who you are, period. All right. People know they just cannot come at you any old kind of way, and you're quite intimidating just sitting there. All right. So this isn't them going out of their way to be nasty towards you. This isn't going out of, not acting silly and lying to you or just being a despicable person. Some of it is just not knowing how to handle you. It's immaturity. All right. Not in the sense of doing something ridiculous, but just not knowing how to be around you. All right. So I don't want you going and thinking like my divine counterpart is a deceitful person. Like, so I'm not giving them another chance. No, that's not necessarily what's going on. All right. Again, they had the healing card. They're able to see what needed to change. And it seems like with realizing that they need to match you, that's what they want to do, and that's what they're working on, whether they realize it or not. They're making those changes internally on themselves, and you're the reason why. Not that you said you change or you don't come anywhere. Those ultimatums, you're not in that energy. They're just naturally doing it because they have to meet you. They cannot come to you unhealed in a sense. Not mean 100% healed, but, to a point where they are ready for you. All right. That's why a lot of your connections have to do with divine timing. All right. Also, this is not pleasant. It's not quick. Divine timing. Whatever choices they made, they had to make them and go through them. All right. So, which tells me, rooted and rising, I think that you intuitively already knew that. So whatever they did, whatever they went with, whatever went on, it was necessary. You see that it changed them enough to want to heal them. They needed to make those decisions and go through those things so they could change internally, because they're not going to be ready for you unless they do. If they came at you the way they were, things would have fell apart because you're already in a state of maturity. You are already Queen of Pentacles bear, and they are going to give them maybe at the Knight. We're not going to call them a page because, but they weren't fully in King of Pentacles energy yet. And that's where they needed to be, and that's where they're trying to be for you. So none of this is a horrible thing, and they're not a horrible person. Again, you're a lot to take in, rooted and rising. You're not an ordinary person. All right, you're not. You are an atmosphere changer. You bring out people's insecurities, which is why you probably have a lot of people who don't want to be around you, not because they've done anything wrong, because your light within you naturally, you're nice, you're just shedding light on people's darkness. Shedding light. Light's just shining and saying boop, boop, boop to people in their insecurities, not knowing that you also have your own, right? But anyway, I didn't went off enough. Okay, so this Kipper Oracle deck, False Person, Mystery, Deceit, Hidden Agendas card. All right, again, they were aware that they weren't fully themselves. They're just fully honest, not fully transparent, okay? Not necessarily lying, just fully open and transparent about how they felt about you and just about who they truly were, showing their true selves, pretty guarded, stoic, or maybe they just weren't ever able to be who they really are, or weren't made to feel comfortable to be who they are. All right, so they may have had masks. They might have masked themselves or wore masks. Avoidance, that's a good one. Just avoid it, your period. If I don't see it, it's not there. Half truths. I'm laughing because when they said I was pregnant, God, I did the same thing. I was like, no, no, I'm not. First pregnancy test, I'm gonna have to say it's where I'm like, yeah, you a goddamn lie. Nope. Second one, nope. The nurse, nope. The sonogram, you can say it all day long, honey, but you pregnant. If I just avoid it, it's not there. Yes, it is, honey. It ain't going nowhere till you deal with it. All right, whether you come together and connect, you have to face it or not. Whether you come together or not, it's still something you have to face. All right, get it out there. It's not going to go away. All right, anyway, so there may have been mask avoidance is a big one. Half truths, and Spirit is saying they know that this played a role in what happened between you guys, between you two. All right, whether it was just a disconnect emotionally, or things just not, or just maybe last encounters not ending the best, or however that looks, So it isn't denial energy, this card. It's recognition. All right, they're they're going through the healing or been through it, and they're recognizing their part in it. But the best part of it, they're owning up to their part in it. All right, which speaks to their character. There's not a lot of people who will own up to their own parts. If they can own up to it, which is accountability, that means they're changing and willing to change. It means that they're a person willing to even do that when they connect with you. They can realize, even when you guys come together, they can realize their own portions that they have to account for. All right. And likely you're a person rooted and rising that also, walks in their own accountability as well. So it speaks to who they are. All right. We all make mistakes, but it's, or even go through things. But it speaks to who they are, that they can realize this was my part in it. Now let me change it. That's beautiful, okay? All right, let me move on to the Two of Vessels. All right, which is the heart of it. The Two of Vessels is mutual connection, emotional alignment, attraction, and the potential for union, all right? Mirroring the Two of Cups from the traditional tarot. So Spirit is saying here, the feelings were real. The feelings are real. The feelings were real. The feelings are real. All right, let me say it again. The feelings are real. You're not imagining it. The connection was real. The connection is still real, whether it's still just emotional at this point. And even now, there is still a sense of pull, of recognition, of this could be something, right? This could go somewhere. This is my person, right? And with the Unspoken Truth Oracle deck, if love had a weight, would you still carry it? Right? This is not a light question rooted in rising. This is not a light question at all. All right? That's their unspoken truth. If love had a weight, would you still carry it? All right? This is them wondering if what you shared still holds weight for you. All right? It's like that offering, like the page, the very simple offering, something a simple romantic gesture, holding it out, would you still carry it if love had a weight? It's not a light question. It's almost saying, do I still have a chance? Do I still have an opportunity? If I gave you this small gesture, I reached out a very small reaching out, right? You know what I mean? Do you still feel the same way? Is there still an opening? All right. So this is them wondering if what you shared still holds weight for you, the way that it does for them. All right. And we pair that with the Kipper Oracle deck card, horse riding, thrill, confidence, back in the saddle, which is what they want to do, right? They want to move from the Page of Cups, that little gesture, or even the thought of the romantic gesture, to the Knight of Cups. The knight is, is coming on through on the horse, right? And actually send that message, or in whatever capacity that is, and letting you know how they either feel, or just offering something small like, hey, how are you? Just thinking about you. How are things going on, or whatever else. You know what I mean? So there's energy here of wanting to come forward once again. All right. That's the, if love had a weight, would you still carry it? Like, is it still possible for me to reach out? Okay. So not in the same way as before, but with more awareness. All right. More awareness of who you really are, and more emotional, and not just emotional, just more maturity all the way around, because they've grown, more confidence, right? More intention, all right? This could feel like, once again, a desire to reconnect or explore the connection again, however that looks like for you, and wondering if the feelings are still mutual, all right? And feeling drawn back towards you after time and reflection. So basically, they haven't let go of how they feel about you, still wondering if you also feel the same way, and if it's okay for them to reach out to you again, all right? Especially going on through after that, all right? So rooted in rising, this person's unspoken truth is quite layered, right? It's layered. There's regret here, there's recognition here, there's healing happening, and there is still connection, all right? They see now what you were, who you were or are, as in at one point they really didn't fully realize, or they realized they didn't know what to do with it. But more than anything, they're asking themselves, is it too late to meet you in the energy that you've always deserved? All right. I want to say one more thing before we end. I want you to realize that they have likely gone through one hell of a, season, okay? And in that season, it has done a lot to change them. The decisions that were made, the choices that were made, or whatever went on was the catalyst, all right, for their growth. And they needed that growth to be ready to come to you, all right? It doesn't mean that you just have to be in the energy of receiving whatever small outreach they offer. But just realize none of this was malicious. Some of it immaturity, some of it your strong presence, all right? Some of it, again, expectation, social standing. What would society say? Some of it was just that. But the feelings never died. They were always real. They were always genuine. They were always there. They never died. Whether it was the whole don't know what you got till it's gone energy, they didn't leave it there. They realized it, realized their own mistakes, work to change those mistakes. And without any of that, once again, they would not have been in a place to meet you in that King of Pentacles energy, all right? And for this particular deck that we used, the Wild Wood Tarot, the Queen of Pentacles is represented again by the bear, the Queen of Stones. The King of Stones is actually the wolf. So I wasn't going to say, he can't meet you in the Papa Bear energy, but the King of Stones is actually represented by the wolf. Okay, so anyway, without all of that, they wouldn't have been able to come to you. They would have come to you if they would have initiated something there. They wouldn't have been in that energy needed to sustain who you are. Okay? All right. And I think a lot of you rooted in rising, you're very intuitive. You already knew that. All right? You already knew. You already knew the choices that would be made. You already knew what they would go through. You already knew what the end result of what they chose would be. And you already know that it was needed. All right? You already knew it was the catalyst for change and the catalyst for healing. All right? All right? And for me, that's what's most important. All right? Not, I desire connection and that above everything else. What's more important is their healing. That is what brings me true joy. All right? When people heal and better themselves and are always moving forward to be a better person, whether they choose to connect with me or not. All right? And you're likely the same, right? Because you're very caring and kind, very nurturing, true Queen of Pentacles energy, whatever that looks like for you. Not just talking about ladies here. All right, true bear energy. All right, as always, stay rooted, stay rising, and align with all the divine gifts ahead.